Today, we are going to talk about cityscape photography, how you can take better cityscape photos, the kinds of photos you can get in the city, all that fun stuff. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring you a brand new, fresh photography tutorial. This week, of course, is no different. It is Tuesday once again, and we're talking about cityscape photography. Now, this is one of my favorite types of photography. It's like landscape, which I love, but obviously it's within the city. And there's loads of different photos you can get when you're going for that cityscape kind of stuff. You know, skylines, you can focus in on some individual things. You can almost take portraits of the city. There's loads of opportunities for interesting composition, whether that's framing, leading lines, all kinds of stuff. We're gonna go into how you can take better photos in the city, better cityscape photos. Let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the time of day to shoot. Now, almost everyone, when it comes to photography, will say the best time to go and shoot is sunset or sunrise. That's still true here. That is one of the best ways to go and get some great photos. Sunset can look fantastic in the city. Sunrise can also offer some really unique opportunities to capture things like mist and stuff like that. But sunset certainly offers a really beautiful, golden tones within the city, bouncing off windows and buildings and just creating a beautiful look to things. But just after sunset, then you get into blue hour. And in the city, that looks fantastic. And of course, with the city, you've got the added benefit that there are lights everywhere. So waiting till after sunset can offer you a totally different view of your surroundings. You're suddenly talking about light trails, reflections, especially if it's raining. That is fantastic. Lights everywhere, long exposure. There's so many opportunities to capture different looking kind of photos within the city. Something that looked one way in the day suddenly looks totally different at night, and it is absolutely worth waiting around. Sure, shoot sunset, that's gonna look great, but wait around till after as well. Get those blue hour shots, because that is when you're gonna get some proper city magic. Next up, let's talk a little bit about lenses. So of course, wide angle lenses are gonna be fantastic, right? That's gonna let you capture a whole scene. You're gonna get a great skyline. You're gonna be able to shoot up at buildings and things like that and get a lot into your shot. The wide angle lens for cities is great, especially if you're using a camera with a slightly higher megapixel count. You can always crop in later if you want to as well. But I generally advise people when we go on cityscape shoots, take a wide angle, and then take an 85mm or a 70-200 or something like that, because that is going to give you a very different look to your photos. It's going to give that compression, pull everything together. You can frame things interestingly. You can get some kind of bokeh of a foreground element, maybe a background element, all that kind of stuff. Mix up your lenses a little bit. Yes, wide angle is absolutely going to be your friend here. 16-35, perfect. 24-70, that's probably my favorite lens actually for going around doing cityscapes, but 16-35, absolutely close second there as well. And then a 70-200 or an 85mm, that's going to give you a really different point of view, and that can be really interesting as well. Next up, let's talk a little bit about composition. So the first thing I want to talk about is make sure to look up. Now, when you're doing landscapes, you don't tend to necessarily think about looking up. You've got the sky, that can look fantastic, but otherwise, generally, you're looking out at whatever your landscape is. But with the cityscape stuff, yes, you can get up high and look down on the city or get a skyline shot. But don't forget to look up, because especially if you're in a big city like London, for example, or New York would be fantastic for this sort of thing, looking up can give you a very different perspective on the city. And if you're at street level, you're going to be able to capture those skyscrapers absolutely piercing into the sky, going up, and it can just look fantastic. It's a very different composition to kind of shooting street level or up high shooting down. Actually being street level shooting up, even directly up, can look really, really good. And you can get some incredibly interesting lines and angles of buildings. Of course, you want to mix up your angles a bit, shoot down those streets, get up high, shoot the skyline, but just don't forget to look up as well, because that can give you a totally different photo. And sticking with composition just for a second, let's talk about layering up your photos. So whether you're shooting down a street, whether you're shooting a skyline, something that works really well with cityscape photography is actually layering your photos, having something in the foreground, and maybe having a middle ground and a background, but at least 2 layers, a foreground and a background. Because generally with a city, you've always got the opportunity to do that. You could shoot down a street, that's your foreground, with a big skyscraper in the background, and that's the That's your background. They're your two layers. Maybe you've got something, a building in the foreground, which you're capturing with another building offset in the background, another kind of layer situation you've got there. You can always frame things up by shooting through, either through buildings, through windows, all kinds of stuff like that. There are loads of ways to layer up your photos. Reflections can work great for this as well. Even if you're shooting into a window and actually getting the city reflected in there, you've got so many opportunities to layer up your photos. So think about, what is the subject of your photo? Absolutely. That's always really important, having a clear, defined subject of your photo. But think about how you can layer that up. What can you get visually interesting within the photo? How could you frame things up so you're framing your subject with other buildings or with people or anything like that? There's loads of ways of layering it up. And the last thing I want to talk about is capturing the feel of the city. So obviously skyline, great, you know, getting a subject, amazing, sunset, all that stuff looks amazing, but sometimes you need to capture the feel of a city, because cities have different feels. You know, when I was in Rome, I took photos of the Colosseum and all that stuff, the Vatican, all the things. But actually one of my favorite photos that I came home with was this shot just while I was sitting in a tuk-tuk going along the streets, because it really encapsulates the feel I had while I was there. You know, the busy streets, the roads are kind of, you know, hectic and all kind of over the place, whizzing by, but these buildings are just amazing. It just brought me straight back to when I was actually in Rome. Same with London. You know, on a rainy night, you got lights and stuff like that, but actually just capturing someone with an umbrella, that can really capture the feel of being in London on a rainy night. A great way of doing this is to focus in on some smaller detail of the city. So for example, at the Vatican, I was focusing on some of these statues, which are just so amazing, but it really gets the feel of them kind of towering over you, you know, focusing in on the bigger buildings and then the people around as well. But it's just as important to try and get that feel into your photos as it is to, you know, get a beautiful sunset shot. You know, the feel of a city can be very unique, and that is a powerful thing to capture in a photo. So try and focus on some of the smaller elements of the photo. Try and include some people in your shot. Maybe get, you know, someone interacting with a part of the city. You know, tourists can make a great photo opportunity as they're taking photos of themselves or of a part of the city. You can take a photo of them, you know, almost a bit street photography-esque, taking photos of them, taking photos of sites. You know, that's a fantastic way to get a feel of the city into your photos. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are down in the comments though about any further tips for cityscapes. That's just some of the stuff that I use when I'm out and about taking photos in places like London. Obviously Rome was one of my favorite places to go take photos, but I'd love to hear any tips you have as well that you don't think we have covered. Of course, there's a link to all of the kit used down in the description. So all the kit used for the photos in this video, actually, and everything you might want to see down there. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. That helped me out a huge amount. I'll see you in the next video. And as always, thanks for watching.